And it was like, if you do this, I'm going to do this. If you do this, I'm going to do this. If you do this, I'm going to do this. And so like I made it, it's like to the client, like if you email me your tax docs, I'm going to delete it.
All right, everybody, we're back for another episode of TaxProTalk or hashtag TPT. Today, our very special guest is Laura Lynn Wilson, CPA. Laura Lynn, what are we going to talk about today?
We're going to talk about how to become a millionaire on TikTok. No, just kidding. What we're going to talk about is how to leverage and use social media for your business.
Love it.
Laura Lynn, let's talk, I don't know where you're at in your tax strategy journey, but would love to just talk to you a little bit about this space that we're in right now with PPP loans, tons of economic incentives being thrown at small businesses, at consumers. How are you managing tax strategy and tax advisory this year?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one thing I've always wanted to do, and honestly, this whole thing has prompted me finally to go and launch it, but I love creating content in the sense of educational content, because pretty early on, I realized all these things that start to become very natural to a CPA to know, like, yeah, this is how you take a meal deduction. This is what a meal is. It's not clear at all to clients. It's the simplest stuff. And even clients that have worked with me for years have no idea. They're like, wait, so how does auto mileage work? And I'm like, you've never covered this? And so that prompted me to be like, okay, I need to somehow create an educational resource base that starts covering the stuff that clients of mine can just tap into, and then other people as well. You know, you could charge a subscription price for them to tap into that as well. And so once COVID hit, what happened as well was there was all this information coming into me that needed to go out in kind of a mass format. I'm like, I would love to call up every single client and talk to them every single day about the changes that are happening every single day. But I'm like, I can't do that. And so I actually launched a newsletter in the end of March. And it started out as bi-weekly because that's how fast information was changing. But I put all my clients on this newsletter, and I actually made it a public newsletter. Right now it's called Quarantine Corner. It's a little on the nose, but I'm like, this is fun for now. Like, you know, try and make some fun of it. But I actually opened it up to, I've spoken on some panels with, there's a group here called Host to Host, which helps Airbnb hosts. And so I like opened it up to them. So everything I was learning, and a lot of it honestly was through tax Twitter, like just being on Twitter all day, every day, being like, what's the latest? And then all that information that was coming out, I was disseminating out in bi-weekly newsletters. And it's so fun. And clients, we have some clients, I mean, we're pretty much virtual. There's clients I've never met face-to-face. There's clients who didn't even know who I was, you know, and they're like, who's this girl coming out of nowhere with all this great information? And so that was the primary way that we communicated, you know, kind of those ongoing changes, was just getting that newsletter out bi-weekly, and everyone responded really well to it. And now though, the great result of it is, you know, I have these outside non-clients on this list too. And I'm like, awesome. That's like a lead generator. Now I can pitch this membership site that I'll be launching soon to them, being like, all this great information you're getting here, it's all going to be like in this whole resource for you. So it's been a great opportunity to kind of turn something into that's kind of been brewing in my mind for years, and actually being like, okay, now's the time to do it. So.
Wow. That is awesome. And yeah, a lot of opportunity this year to communicate with clients and customers and prospects, and almost you can't over communicate this year because there's so much coming at us, and usually we have a year to digest the tax law before we actually have to employ it. And this time I think we had weeks.
Yes.
That's so true.
About 2 weeks. So, and it's constantly changing. So would expect that to continue for another full year here. So great opportunity to keep, you know, over communicating to customers.
Yeah. It's so funny to look back on like my late March newsletters and being like, this is what we know. And now like 3 months later, it's being like, okay, it's all completely changed. Just like how fast it evolved.
Yeah. This is definitely one of those years. I always tell clients, I always say, hey, what I'm about to tell you, I guarantee you some of it will be wrong. At some point it'll be wrong. But today is what we know.
Yeah. I'm like, today at 8:32, it says this. I'm like, subject to change at any time. I'm like, let's just like timestamp this.
Yes.
Very true. I love what you said about social. So first of all, your social game is strong. We'll get back to TikTok here in a few minutes. But in the meantime, you just mentioned something about a feedback loop that you've created through Twitter that fuels your newsletter. And you're taking questions that you receive in mass off of social, right? Off of Twitter, and then baking that into what you present as a deliverable for your content. Can you talk a little bit more about that? I think there's something really valuable there that people may not know about as far as how to produce content.
Okay. Yeah. And let me correct you a little bit. A lot of what I'm taking off Twitter is from other professionals. So I'm kind of the funnel of it's like there's all this information out here that needs to get to clients and it's funneling through me and then back out the other side. But yes, I also actually do that, but more with clients, because a client will come out of nowhere and be like, hey, I have a private investor and they're wondering what would be the tax implications of this. Simple question. I'm like, I could do a webinar on that. I could create a blog post on that. And so it's literally any question a client asks me now, I'm like, okay, how could I turn that into content that's digestible and I can mass produce? Because like if he has it, hundreds, thousands of people have the same question. And so it's kind of rethinking of like, oh, it's just not another like annoying client request to answer. It's like, oh, wait, this is actually an opportunity to create content and then be able to copy and paste it, you know? And then also it becomes a nice resource where the next time a client asks that, you're like, oh, here's this nice little PDF I've created. There you go. Have at it.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. That feels a little reactionary. Do you plan your social? Are you a few days ahead, a week ahead, a month ahead? How does that work for you?
I know this is all wrong. I am spur of the moment. I'm like, as it strikes me. And so like, I'll have periods where it's like, you know, and then I'll have periods where it's just dead for several days, just because, you know, I'm going about life or I'm busy with something. But the thing is, I have in the past when we've had more of our business page, when I was more active on our company page, it was planned. Like I would plan like 3 months in advance. I would do Facebook posts, Twitter posts, you know, but it was just like, and it was during tax season I was doing it. So it was very easy to do like, you know, 1099 reminders and, you know, get your tax stuff into your tax professional. But it just, when you're doing it, for me, when I'm doing it that way, it comes across as it's a little more dry and not as authentic. You know, when it's more spur of the moment, it is reactionary. I'm reacting something that emotionally affected me so I can convey that emotion a lot easier. You know, and it's like some of my greats, like, you know, oh, a bird feeder I bought, 50 likes, you know.
Sure.
You can't plan that.
No, you can't. Have you started to point that outwards towards your clients as part of education? Are you starting to take those learnings and help your businesses leverage that as well? Have you gotten to that step yet?
Not yet. And it's part of it is my businesses don't even know like what I'm doing on Twitter. I think I have 2 clients total who even know I'm on Twitter because they're on Twitter, and 1 client who knows I'm on TikTok. But most of them are completely oblivious. Like even my own family, like my brother started at Twitter and he goes to follow me. He's like, what? He's like, what's going on? I'm like, oh yeah. So I'm very active in the accounting Twitter community.
My goal's been to get Jim on TikTok this year, but then we shut down and got socially isolated. So I'm still after you, Jim. We're going to get that done. I promise you.
Yeah.
That's one kind of service offering we want to start to launch. We're on the back end building right now, kind of a service corporation platform in the sense that businesses can come to us, like our collective, we have a hexagon that's kind of our logo. But if you like think of each branch of that hexagon, it's like, okay, every business has these needs: HR, IT, financial, marketing. And so we've been kind of planning and strategizing for a couple of years of, okay, how can we create this other entity over here and actually roll out some of those things like the marketing, you know, because it's a lot of our clients, you know, the extent of their marketing is like paying $500 for Google ads, a lot, you know, and it's like, okay, what's actually the return on that? Is your website even functional? Like, how are people interacting it? And so there's so many different layers we can dive into. But luckily my business partner, both of us joke that we're CPAs who don't like accounting, you know, in the sense that we're more creative and entrepreneurial minded. It's like, okay, how can we use this and leverage it and do other fun things that we love doing and, spread ourselves around. And so marketing is a piece love to get into, but that being said, I'm not a marketer by any means.
No, for sure. It's this thing of being 3 steps ahead and bringing up the people around us, right? And social is one of those areas where people have certainly mastered it, but if you know a little something, it's especially for a small business owner, it's definitely worth a conversation to point them in a direction, right? As part of the total value. It's an interesting piece of advisory services, I think, that we're starting to explore a little more. So
especially this year with so many businesses that were traditionally brick and mortar, and they're not even realizing can't be found, their hours aren't updated on the web. They may have bad reviews, and when people go to hunt them down, you got to have the current information. Yes, we're open. Yes, here's our services. There's just the basics that so many professionals need to be working on with their clients this year. So, and it probably won't end, but at least covering the basics this year.
Like have a website that's accurate and people can find what they're looking for.
Have a mobile ready website. I still meet with so many firms that when you pull up the site on the iPhone,
terrible.
It doesn't look good.
Yeah.
No web or mobile optimization.
Yeah.
So many people are talking about legislation right now with TikTok, and a lot of the major tech companies are talking about shutting it out of their servers. So
because of the Chinese, right?
Yeah, it's interesting time. They're massive though. I remember last year looking at the stack ranking on the App Store, and they were #1 downloaded app by a landslide. In fact, if you added together Instagram, Facebook, and I forget what the third one, it may have been Twitter, it still just reached the number of downloads for TikTok.
Yeah.
So they took off.
Yeah, but if your clients are teenagers, that's a good thing. I don't think most of our clients are probably.
Well, I mean, even if you look at millennials, right? Millennials are going to make up 75% of the workforce here in the next few years. So there's a lot of folks on TikTok dancing and talking, man.
I've come across some of them. There's one. I don't know. Are either of you familiar? Do either of you have TikTok on your phone?
I do.
My daughter shows it to me, but I don't.
Okay, so for those of you not familiar with how TikTok works, so you open it up and it kind of curates a feed for you, and you just swipe, and it just plays video after video after video, and something about it's so addicting. But I've several times come across, he's a attractive guy, but he's a veterinarian who's leveraged it and has hundreds of thousands of viewers, and is literally doing these little dances as he's talking about vet stuff and animal stuff. And I'm like, okay, if I wised up and actually got a real TikTok strategy in place, I would do that. Right now I'm just kind of shotgun, this is funny, I'm gonna do this right now. And a lot of the stuff I do that is accounting related is really accounting niche, only accountants will get it. It's not something the standard business owner would have any idea what that is.
That's so great. It is kind of the Wild West still. I mean, there's just so much different content, all centered around dancing and singing and lip syncing. But you're right, there's so many different verticals baked into that.
But I mean, there are I remember I created one off of the Office soundbite, and it was if you do this, I'm going to do this. If you do this, I'm going to do this. If you do this, I'm going to do this. And so I made it. It's to the client, if you email me your tax docs, I'm going to delete it. And it was just if you email it, I'm deleting it. If you email it, delete it. And I'm those, it's broken down so simply. I'm maybe I will start kind of using some of those to be anytime they email me docs, I just send them that video. And I'm
that's so perfect.
Because saying stop emailing us documents is for whatever reason, year after year, not getting through to anyone. And so just, putting that in there, a little literally 8-second video, they're oh, okay.
Thank you for watching Tax Pro Talk, brought to you by Intuit Pro Connect for tax and accounting professionals.